This week on The Aviators, Curtis finds out what it's like to be at 30,000 feet with no oxygen as he steps into the Embry-Riddle high altitude lab.
Now this is designed for a 2-year-old.
We take you out onto the tarmac at Love Field as we show you the ins and outs of commercial flying. Sure, you've been a passenger, but this is commercial flying like you haven't seen before. Earlier this season, we took you inside the last flying B-29 bomber, Fifi. The B-29 was one of the first mass-produced aircraft to have a pressurized cabin. Today, aircraft of all sizes use pressurized cabins to safely transport people at altitudes where there just isn't enough oxygen for us to survive. But what happens to our bodies without oxygen? And what would happen if an aircraft lost pressurization at 30,000 feet? To find out, Curtis is heading back to school as he ventures to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida.
You know, we have a lot of degree programs, 40 degree programs, but I don't think any are as well recognized as our aeronautical science degree program, where we prepare the next generation of pilots. 23% of all the professional pilots in the United States are trained at Embry-Riddle. A modern pilot flying a large commercial airliner, they have to have an understanding of computers, computer science, programming. They get training in a normal barrack chamber. We're the only aviation school in the world that has its own normal barrack chamber that teaches students how to perceive or have sensation when they are developing hypoxia or oxygen deprivation.
51 north of Ormond.
While Curtis isn't training to become a commercial pilot, he is going to experience hypoxia firsthand in the university's high-altitude lab. Guiding Curtis and 5 other students through the process will be physiology professor Glenn Harmon.
We learn about it as pilots when you're getting your license. For our viewers who may not have gotten their pilot's license yet, can you describe what is hypoxia and why it's important for pilots to know about it?
Hypoxia simply is the lack of oxygen in the body. So that means for whatever reason, low pressure or low oxygen content, your blood is not able to assimilate or carry as much oxygen as it normally does.
Okay, number 2, anything? Tingling. Hello?
Well, the typical symptoms that you see with hypoxia are very similar to being inebriated or intoxicating. We have lightheadedness, we have dizziness, a feeling of euphoria, where everything feels very good. And the threat is we usually don't recognize that there's a serious problem.
So we're just getting ready to go in the chamber here. Everybody is actually lined up in the order that we're going to sit inside. It's important, there's an airlock in between here, so it's important that we all get in quickly so we don't actually re-oxygenate the room, which would diminish the effects of hypoxia that we're going to experience this morning. You talked about the ability to experience hypoxia for yourself. Why do you think that's important?
It's important because being able to actually experience your symptoms, to feel what it's like in yourself, is the critical thing, because now you and I would know what our personal symptoms are. It's one thing for me to give you a list of potential symptoms, but you don't know exactly in what order those are going to come on or how strong they're going to be with you. Once you experience that, then you will know, oh, this felt different than what I normally feel on the flight deck or in the cockpit. And so that's the whole key thing of being able to feel it and to recognize what it is, and then of course put the oxygen mask back on before you become incapacitated.
With their masks off, the students experience the same oxygen level as roughly 30,000 feet in altitude. While their masks are off, the students' blood oxygen level is monitored using a pulse oximeter.
What would you do if you were experiencing this right now in the aircraft? What would be another thing to do there, number 3?
The mask.
Okay, put the mask on.
One of the prime visual symptoms of hypoxia is cyanosis, a bluing of the skin, particularly visible in the fingertips.
I'll have you go ahead and put your mask on at this time.
Once their oxygen masks are back on, their blood oxygen levels very quickly return to normal, and the symptoms of hypoxia dissipate rapidly. After watching several other students experience hypoxia, it's Curtis's turn to remove his mask and experience oxygen deprivation.
It feels pretty normal. However, I wonder what's been happening since we've been sitting here.
But once again, about 26,000 feet, certainly you can get hypoxic. And Curtis, you can also relate these symptoms and everything that you're experiencing to flying your own aircraft at the high altitudes there.
While this lab is designed to simulate altitudes above 20,000 feet, regulations require pilots who fly above 12,500 feet to have some sort of oxygen supply. In fact, it's strongly recommended that above 10,000 feet, the pilot and passengers should wear oxygen masks, and you're about to see why.
Emergency landing without engine power. Okay, here you go, Jody.
It's right here. Passenger, seat backs, most upright 65 knots, touchdown, slightly tail idle, cut off.
Gosh, I hope we have lots of altitude. Thank you. All right. You finally got through that.
But this is an incredible experience because you may recognize the symptom of hypoxia in one of your crewmates or another person before you really recognize it in yourself, and that's probably a good idea at that point to don your oxygen mask and then start talking about it.
Basic motor skills and the ability to process simple puzzles are also reduced while hypoxic.
12 plus 7 is 21.
So I'm going to have you take your mask, just hold it to your face. All of these all look blue. One of them is purple and one of them is actually green. Now this is designed for a 2-year-old.
I'm not that smart. The interesting thing is you don't really feel like it's unsafe for you to have control of the airplane, which is a really interesting thing because, yeah, in my day job, I've got to talk to a couple of pilots who've had hypoxia, and it's really interesting convincing them to see, there you go, the speech is going. It's really interesting to experience because you have to convince them to descend the aircraft, and then you want to keep a really close eye on them, especially because in both cases it happened at night, and you don't want them to descend too low. They've got to catch the airplane at a safe altitude, like 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 feet, where the oxygen is more saturated. Yep, there's my slurring.
Perhaps the most important thing to note about hypoxia is that the symptoms dissipate very quickly once you reestablish a steady flow of oxygen. This makes getting an oxygen mask on as quickly as possible a top priority.
We know that your time of useful consciousness up in the 40,000 range is a matter of seconds. I think they have an appreciation for the fact that they know they're always operating in that environment, so that if there was a loss of cabin pressurization, a window, a door seal that blows out, they realize what the threat is. It's a threat that's going to occur in a matter of seconds. And now being armed with this knowledge and being able to know what it feels like, they would be able to reach, grab that oxygen mask, put it on, and protect themselves and their crew, immediately.
It was a pretty incredible experience because for years you read about these things in books, but to actually experience it yourself and feel some of the sensations you get, the sense of euphoria is probably way more than I expected it to be, which is to say, I don't think at any point through that whole process I really had any fear about the actions I was going to take to alleviate the situation I was in. But I think when we go back and play the tape back and I see what I was actually doing in real time, my responses were probably pretty slow.
While experiencing hypoxia in a controlled environment like the high-altitude lab may seem like fun, it's even more importantly great training. But it's also something you'll never want to experience during an actual flight.